Firstpost reports from the world's second largest continent. Hello, I'm Alyson Grange. A very warm welcome from Durban, South Africa. We get you the news and the newsmakers from Africa. From elections to climate change to innovations and opportunities. As the world's attention shifts, we report from Africa, the heart of the global south. Join me every weekday live on Firstpost. Hello and welcome to Firstpost Africa, where we get you the top stories from the continent and from across the world. I'm Alyson Grange, coming to you live from Durban, South Africa. First, let's take a look at the headlines. A massive Ukrainian drone strike sets an airfield on fire near a strategic bomber base in Russia's Saratov region. Moscow claims to have downed 132 Ukrainian drones in overnight attacks across multiple regions. Latest Israeli airstrikes across Gaza kill at least 70 Palestinians and wound dozens. This as Israel resumes its ground operations in the enclave, abandoning a ceasefire that was held since January. Turkey detains 37 people for sharing provocative content on social media, pressing ahead with a crackdown on dissenting voices that escalated with the arrest of the Istanbul mayor, a potential challenger to President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Sudan's army reportedly inches closer to retaking control of the presidential palace in Khartoum from the paramilitary RSF, marking a key turning point in the two-year civil war. And Indonesia's parliament amends a law to allow members of the military to hold more government roles. Despite criticism, it would expand the armed forces' role in civilian affairs. Hello and welcome. Our top focus remains on the escalating crisis in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Rwanda-backed M23 rebels have pressed deeper into the eastern DRC, entering yet another town amid continued offensive. Now, this comes despite a surprise meeting in Qatar between Rwandan President Paul Kagame and his DRC counterpart Felix Tshisekedi. The two leaders committed to an immediate ceasefire on Tuesday, but on the ground, the fighting rages on. Reports confirm that M23 rebels have now reached the outskirts of the Walikale, a mineral-rich town in eastern DRC. This marks the farthest west the M23 has advanced in its unprecedented offensive this year. Walikale sits just 125 kilometers northwest of eastern DRC's largest city, Goma, that the rebels seized in January. With this latest advance, the M23 forces are now within 400 kilometers of Kisangani, which is Congo's fourth largest city. The rebels have also taken control of Bukavu, the capital of South Kivu province. The escalation has dealt a major blow to hopes for a ceasefire, which had been ignited after the Doha talks. While leaders agreed to de-escalate, the terms remain unclear. The joint statement from talks did not outline specific conditions for a ceasefire. Reports indicate that the Doha talks were informal and not intended to replace the existing peace initiatives. The DRC residents, meanwhile, expressed their skepticism over the surprise talks.
The meeting between Felix and Kagame cannot bring peace. The essential thing would be to involve other political actors in this matter. Meeting behind closed doors can lead to agreements that won't really benefit Congo. But if they included these political actors, these patriots who care about the country's future, they can help each other establish lasting peace in DRC. We assume Kagame denies the presence of his military on Congolese soil. The fact that he agrees to meet with heads of state, I suppose he recognizes that Rwandan military are on Congolese soil. I believe if he agrees to remove his troops, this will be progress regarding peace in DRC.
On the same day that the DRC and Rwandan leaders met in Doha, the M23 rebels and the DRC government were set to hold direct talks in Angola's capital of Luanda. However, those negotiations were cancelled last minute after the M23 backed out in protest over European Union sanctions. Since last month, the heads of state from the East African Community and the Southern African Development Community have called for an immediate ceasefire. But the situation continues to worsen. The DRC says that at least 7,000 people have been killed since January in the M23 offensive. Kinshasa accuses Rwanda of backing the rebels to exploit the DRC's critical mineral resources. The United Nations estimates that up to 4,000 Rwandan troops are present in eastern DRC. Rwanda, however, claims it is taking a defensive posture against DRC forces and anti-Kigali militias. Despite increasing international pressure, Kigali remains defiant. However, Qatar's mediation brought hope for a tone change. Qatar, which has mediated in several global conflicts, is a strategic ally to both the DRC and to Rwanda. In recent years, it has signed multiple investment agreements with Kinshasa and Kigali. Qatar is also funding a new airport hub near Rwanda's capital, worth more than $1 billion. While Qatar has successfully brought both sides to the negotiation table, the M23 offensive continues. How will it further complicate the DRC crisis? To discuss this further, we have with us Dr. Charles Sinkala, an international relations expert who is joining us live from Lusaka in Zambia. Welcome to Firstpost.
Thank you.
Now, what does the M23 rebels' continued advance, despite the Qatar-mediated ceasefire call, reveal about the effectiveness of the diplomatic efforts between the DRC and Rwanda?
Thank you very much for having me. It is a statement one who also want to ask why have they continued after so many peace talks that has happened, whether from the SADC region, continental region, and as well as independent mediation that has happened. But we also need to analyze and question the questions that many others are questioning in terms of is the M23 the only problem in Rwanda and in DRC that is been alleged to have been backed by the Rwandanese government, or there are other forces as well which are making the peace talks not to yield any results, and those are the issues that we may have to look at in the future.
And how significant is the Walikale strategically for the M23 rebels? And what implications does their presence there have for the broader security situation in the eastern DRC?
They pose a very significant threat to the security of the DRC, especially in the eastern part of DRC, which is Goma and the surrounding towns, in the sense that the governance there has become so impossible. The military from the national government has fought so hard to provide either support, food, clothing, and security for the citizens within that area because of the M23, who does not want any state security, any military from the state to have the presence there.
And Doctor, with the ongoing clashes and these so far failed ceasefire efforts, what are the prospects for a sustainable resolution to the conflict? And what role can regional or international actors play in de-escalation at this stage?
I think there must be more emphasis in terms of identifying what is the actual causation of these conflicts. In the absence of them identifying and understanding the actual causations of these conflicts, it will be impossible to stop these conflicts from escalating further. I see the concentration, like I've mentioned, has been solely on the M23, but there's more than 150 militia groups that are in DRC, sponsored by a lot of organizations. We also saw and understood that there's also mercenaries who has been employed by private military and security organizations to provide security to the to protect their mineral wealth there. We can only see the light to the peace talks and the subsequent the de-escalation of military once we identify the actors who are perpetrating these conflicts.
Right. Thank you very much for being with us on the broadcast. Your valued opinion, always welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
For our next story, we shift focus a bit more eastwards toward the Horn of Africa, where the security situation remains tense amid the growing fears of a stronger nexus between Yemen's Houthi rebels and Somalia's Al-Shabaab terror group. The Iran-backed Houthis have reportedly expanded their cross-border collaboration with Al-Qaeda-affiliated Al-Shabaab, a group that has waged a deadly Islamist insurgency in Somalia for years. A new United Nations report confirms this connection. Now, according to the report, Al-Shabaab held at least 2 meetings in Somalia with Houthi representatives in July and September last year. The group reportedly requested advanced weapons and training from the Houthis. In return, Al-Shabaab was tasked with increasing piracy operations in the Gulf of Aden and off the Somali coast, targeting cargo ships, disrupting maritime traffic, and demanding ransom for the captured vessels. Now, the report also confirms that between June and September, Al-Shabaab received arms, ammunition, and explosives through Somali ports, and also increased its revenue. Now, this is finding alignment with the U.S. intelligence report from June of 2024, which warned that the Houthis have been actively working to expand their influence in Somalia. Now, they have reportedly formed alliances with local militants and pirate networks, particularly in the Puntland and Bari regions. Now, while the Houthi-al-Shabaab link is confirmed, it is not a natural alliance. The two groups are divided by sectarianism and are not known to have had relationships in the past. Yet there are factors that unite them. Now, first is geography. Yemen and Somalia are separated only by the Gulf of Aden. The narrow strip of water has historically facilitated maritime interaction and trade between the two countries. Then second is common enemies. Both groups share hostilities toward the United States and Israel. Houthi rebels have attacked Red Sea shipping routes in response to the war in Gaza, while Al-Shabaab publicly praised the October 7 attacks by Hamas and supports strikes against Israel and its allies. Both groups have also been targeted in recent U.S. military operations. Just last week, the U.S. carried out airstrikes against Al-Shabaab terrorists near Somalia's capital of Mogadishu. Washington also struck Islamic State positions in the country. And a fierce fight against the Houthis is ongoing. The U.S. has launched a new military campaign against the rebels, vowing to use overwhelming force until the attacks on shipping lanes stop. According to the Houthi-run Yemen Health Ministry, U.S. strikes have killed 53 people and have injured nearly 100 others. Washington claims that the strikes took out several top Houthi commanders, and Houthis claim that they have retaliated with a 4th attack in 72 hours on an American naval fleet in the Red Sea. Experts now fear that escalating hostilities in West Asia could bolster the Houthi-al-Shabaab alliance, and it could worsen the security crisis in the Horn of Africa. And moving on to some news from Western Africa now, where Nigerian President Bola Tinubu has declared a state of emergency in the southern Rivers state. The president has suspended the governor, his deputy, and all lawmakers. He has appointed a former Navy chief as the oil-rich state's administrator for 6 months. The Nigerian president said that the disturbing incidents of pipeline vandalism led to this decision.
It has become inevitably compelling for me to invoke the provision of the Section 305 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended, to declare a state of emergency in Rivers State with effect from today, 18th March.
A key pipeline blast rocked the Rivers State on Monday. The explosion resulted in a fire on the Trans-Niger pipeline. It transports crude oil from onshore oil fields to the Ebonyi export terminal. It is a major oil artery in southern Nigeria's Niger Delta region, which is an important source of crude oil. However, it is prone to crude theft.
The latest security report made available to me show that between yesterday and today, there have been disturbing incidents of vandalization of pipelines by some militants without governor taking any action to curtail them. I have, of course, given stand order to the security agencies to ensure safety of lives of goods people of Rivers State and the oil pipelines.
The recent blast is not the only cause of turmoil. The Rivers State is also reeling under political crisis. This is due to a power struggle between now suspended Governor Fubara and his predecessor Wike. Now, their feud began in late 2023 and spawned court cases crippling the state legislature. Fubara supporters have accused Tinubu of siding with his ally Wike, who was instrumental in his 2023 general election victory in the state. However, the Nigerian president accused Fubara of being complicit in the latest attacks on oil infrastructure. Tinubu, who had earlier brokered peace talks between the two leaders, said that he was disturbed by the political crisis.
It's public knowledge that the governor of Rivers State, for unjustifiable reasons, demolished the House of Assembly of the state as far back as 13th December 2023, and as up till now, 14 months after, now rebuilt the same. I have made personal interventions between the contending parties for a peaceful resolution of this crisis, but my efforts have been largely ignored by the parties to the crisis.
Amidst the political chaos, the local media reported protests in some parts of the state. Many lawyers and opposition members are questioning the legality of the president's decision. The latest decision has pushed Nigeria into constitutional uncertainty. It remains to be seen how Tinubu will respond to this growing criticism. And shifting focus to East Africa, the Dutch King and Queen are in Kenya on a 3-day state visit, but their presence has sparked a major controversy. With President William Ruto's government facing allegations of human rights abuses, thousands of Kenyans have protested the visit, saying it sends the wrong message. They argue that instead of diplomatic celebrations, Kenya's government should be held accountable for human rights violations. So, is this trip a step towards stronger ties, or does it risk legitimizing a government under fire? Our next report has the details.
A red carpet, a 21-gun salute, and an official welcome from President William Ruto. Dutch King Willem-Alexander and Queen Maxima arrived in Nairobi on Monday night for what was supposed to be a diplomatic milestone. But beneath the ceremonial grandeur, tension had been brewing. The visit comes amid growing accusations of human rights violations in Kenya. Since June, President Ruto's administration has faced allegations of suppressing protests, arbitrarily detaining critics, and even state-linked abductions. During last year's anti-tax demonstrations, at least 60 people were reportedly killed by security forces. Others vanished without a trace, sparking international condemnation and demands for justice. In December, during demonstrations against widespread kidnappings and abductions, dozens of peaceful protesters were arrested. Against this backdrop, the Dutch royal visit has only fueled public outrage. Over 22,000 people signed a petition urging them to cancel the trip, arguing that their presence only serves to validate a government accused of human rights abuses and silencing dissent. In spite of receiving 300 emails to cancel the visit, the Dutch government stood firm. They defended the visit as an opportunity to strengthen a 60-year partnership, highlighting the Netherlands as Kenya's largest European trading partner. Yet, beyond economic ties, King Willem-Alexander made it clear that human rights were on the agenda.
The people of Kenya, like those of the Netherlands, want their rights as free citizens to be respected and their voices to be heard. I'm pleased that our country's strong and mature relationship allows us to devote attention during this visit to issues like human rights, good governance, and accountability.
In an attempt to address concerns, the king also met with young Kenyans at the Dutch ambassador's residence, listening to their perspectives on the country's future. But human rights groups such as Amnesty International argue that symbolic gestures are not enough. They want the Netherlands to push for real accountability. For President Ruto, the visit is a chance to present Kenya as a key global player. But it also magnifies the growing criticism of his administration's tactics against dissenters. So, as the Dutch royals conclude their visit today, the question remains, will it bring real change or simply validate a troubled government? For many Kenyans, the fight for justice continues.
And that's it on the show for today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.